The morning was deceptively calm in Willow Creek Estates, a suburban enclave where brick homes stood in neat rows, their shutters uniform, their lawns manicured to perfection. Emily Carter sipped her third coffee, the mug warm against her palms, as she stepped onto the porch with a rag and a bottle of glass cleaner. The windows didn't need cleaning, but the sunlight exposed faint smudges she couldn't ignore. Her husband, Nathan, was out front, kneeling by the curb, wrestling with a new mailbox. The old one was dented, a screw long gone, and Nathan had grumbled for weeks that it made their house look unkempt. Today, he'd finally dragged out his toolbox and a sleek, regulation-sized replacement. It was a small task, ordinary, the kind that should have passed unnoticed in a neighborhood obsessed with rules. Willow Creek was the kind of place where conformity was king. American flags fluttered on porches, hedges were trimmed to exact heights, and the HOA's newsletter was treated like gospel. Emily and Nathan played along. They paid their dues, hid their trash bins, kept the grass pristine. Trouble wasn't their style. But as Emily scrubbed a stubborn streak on the living room window, a faint smile tugging at her lips as Nathan cursed the stubborn old post, the air shifted. A sound cut through the suburban HOA yell, sharp and raw, not frustration, but fear. Her rag froze against the glass. Her pulse surged. She dropped the bottle and sprinted through the house, her sneakers slapping the tile, flinging the front door open with a force that rattled the hinges. Nathan wasn't at the mailbox anymore. He was pinned against their wrought iron gate, the one that framed their modest lot. 3 men strangers surrounded him. One pressed a knee into Nathan's spine, another twisted his arms behind his back like he was a criminal, and the third stood back, arms crossed, watching with the cold detachment of a man used to giving orders. They wore navy polos, a logo stitched in white, Community Safety Patrol. Not cops, not security, just 3 men who looked like they'd spent their glory days on a high school football field and never moved on. Emily's voice cracked the air. "What the hell are you doing?" "That's my husband." They didn't turn. Nathan groaned, his cheek mashed against the metal, his fingers clenched. One of the men barked, "Non-compliance with HOA ordinance. Unauthorized modification." Another added, "Unsafe activity. We're authorized to intervene." Emily's chest tightened, a cold fury spreading like ice. This wasn't a mix-up. These men believed they had the right to manhandle her husband over a mailbox. She stepped forward, her hands shaking. "You have no authority. Let him go." They ignored her. The gate creaked under the weight of Nathan's body, a sound that burned into her memory. They weren't Policino badges, no cruisers, just cheap polos and a plastic baton dangling from the leader's belt. He spat orders like he'd rehearsed them, his radio crackling with static. Nathan didn't fight. He could barely breathe. Emily shouted again, her voice raw. "He's installing a mailbox." "A mailbox?" The leader glanced at her, his tone flat. 3 prior notices ignored. "This is corrective enforcement." Corrective enforcement. The words landed like a slap, absurd yet terrifying in their conviction. The doorbell camera caught it all: Nathan's restraint, Emily's pleas, the men's smug confidence, their HOA logo glinting in the sun. Neighbors' blinds twitched, but no one came out. A garage door slid shut. Emily's hands trembled, not from fear, but from a dawning realization. No one was coming to stop this. The men acted like they'd done this before, their movements too practiced, their arrogance too polished. "You're not cops," she said, her voice low, steady now. "You don't get to touch him." They didn't flinch. The leader smirked, raising his baton slightly, as if her words were a nuisance. When the police finally arrived, the scene had shifted. The patrolman lounged under a neighbor's tree, sipping from a hose, chatting like they'd just finished a routine job. Nathan sat on the porch steps, one hand clutching his ribs, blood trickling from his lip. His shirt was torn, his eyes distant. Emily stood beside him, arms crossed, watching the men like a hawk. The officers were calm, too calm, their questions polite but detached. "They're HOA volunteers," one explained, almost apologetic. "This might be a civil matter." Emily's jaw tightened. "Civil?" They cracked his rib over a mailbox. The officer shrugged, unfazed, like he'd heard it all before. "File a report. Talk to your HOA board." Nathan coughed, wincing, and Emily saw his hand shake as he reached for a glass of water. That moment, his quiet pain, the officer's indifference, napped something inside her. She didn't want fairness anymore. She wanted them to never touch him again. Days bled into shadows. Nathan barely moved from the couch, his ribs aching with every breath. The violation lingered, heavier than the bruises. Emily stopped leaving the house, stopped answering her phone. The footage spread through the neighborhood chat, then beyond, captured not just by their camera, but by a neighbor's shaky phone. No one checked on them. Neighbors avoided eye contact, their silence louder than words. Emily replayed the scene at night. Nathan's head against the gate, the leader's blank stare. She didn't sleep. Then, on Tuesday, a knock. Not a delivery, not a friend deliberate, heavy. Emily cracked the door. Two of the men stood there. Same polos, same smugness, one holding a clipboard, the other a rolled-up form. "Good morning," the leader said, smooth as glass. "Your fence violates section." Emily slammed the door, her hands steady, her jaw locked. She stood there, breathing slowly, feeling something harden inside her, not rage, but resolve. They didn't knock again, but she knew they'd be back. Late Thursday, she saw them through the blind, two of them, filming her lawn, her driveway, the mailbox's shadow. No words, just phones raised, zooming in on nothing, a silent threat. Nathan watched from the kitchen, his hands gripping the counter, his eyes hollow. One of the men caught Emily's gaze through the window and smirked, lifting his phone to record her directly. The message was clear: "We own this." Emily didn't blink. She closed the curtain, placed a hand on Nathan's shoulder, and waited. That night, alone in the hallway, she opened the safe. The Glock 19 was cold, heavy, familiar. She didn't aim it, didn't need to. Its weight was enough, a promise to herself. Friday morning broke still and gray. Emily was up before dawn, not pacing, just waiting. At 9:06, they came, three now, one with a measuring tape, one with a clipboard, one filming. They walked her lawn like it was theirs. Emily moved without hesitation. She retrieved the Glock, checked it, and stepped onto the porch barefoot, the gun low but firm, finger off the trigger, muzzle skyward. "Get off my property," she said, her voice like steel. "Now." They turned, smirking. "This is an HOA inspection," the leader said, chuckling. "We have legal." The shot shattered the air, a single round fired skyward, sharp and deafening. Birds scattered. One man stumbled backward, nearly falling. Another dropped his clipboard. The leader froze, then bolted, not looking back. Emily lowered the gun slightly, still not aiming. "Touch my husband again," she said, barely above a whisper, "and I swear to God." They scrambled, grabbing their things, avoiding her gaze, and fled. By evening, the footage was everywhere. A neighbor had filmed it, posting it with a single caption: "You won't believe this." It spread Facebook, Reddit, then news outlets. Headlines screamed: "Texas woman fires at fake HOA enforcers." Comments erupted, not mocking, but raging, sharing stories of HOA tyranny. The HOA board scrambled, dissolving the patrol in a frantic vote. Two men faced charges impersonating law enforcement, thanks to a fake badge. Nathan filed a civil suit, slow but certain. Neighbors began to nod at Emily, some whispering apologies. She didn't care. She wasn't a hero or a victim. She was the woman who'd stood on her porch and said enough. The mailbox stood firm, its black paint catching the morning sun. Nathan healed, reading on the porch again, his steps lighter. The Glock stayed in the safe, a quiet sentinel. Emily slept deeply, not because the world was right, but because she'd carved her place in it. Neighbors spoke carefully now. "You did what I couldn't." She didn't need their words. She knew she was enough. And if anyone came again, she had 6 more rounds. They wouldn't dare test her twice.